We're going to get started. We just have a few brief remarks, and I certainly want to thank everybody for congregating here. It's been a long time kind of in coming. I do remember that phone call I got from Kathy Furlong, who is a former board president of Penacook Community Center, and I kind of thought I was in trouble because she's like, I want to meet with you tomorrow, and it was literally Thursday. I'm like, okay. So she sat down, and she did inform us that Penacook Community Center wanted to merge with us, and you know, it's just, we've had a lot of these kind of phone calls, and it's great the board members are here, and many of you are on boards. You can kind of relate, you know, taking on a whole nother project, particularly a few years ago, would seem kind of like a monumental task, but, you know, not for our board. They had a couple questions here and there, but, you know, by and large, they were supportive and saying, no, we're in a good position, and this is something that we ought to do, which is really why I like to continue working here, is we are able to take on these projects with a lot of confidence. I love this picture. So when I first walked into the Penacook Community Center, it was hanging over the area as you went downstairs into what was the gym. And I think of these people because they're the ones who actually built the original Penacook Community Center back in the late 40s, early 50s. And many of you, I like history, so you know, many of you know what was going on back then. The war had just ended. I imagine some of these people probably served in that effort and came back, and with that enthusiasm and optimism that we kind of keep reminding ourselves about this country, they just said, we're going to build a building. And they were not thinking about how they were going to raise the money or how they were going to maintain it. They just did it. They raised the money over a period of 4 years. And they built it. And I kind of keep going with that optimism, because when you're going to do something like this, there are a million reasons why you don't do something like this. And there's a million things that could potentially go wrong. And there are sometimes people that are going to tell you those million reasons why X, Y, and Z is not going to work. And it is important, whether you're me or the board or some of the people that are in charge, to say, I understand all of that. And trust me, I think about all that too, but we need to do this anyway. And we're going to find a way to make that work. Just like these people did. It worked. For 70 years, the building stood, and it became kind of the centerpiece of Penacook. So, and being able to kind of continue that tradition, it just makes you proud. I mean, because I'm sure many of them are probably past, and they're looking down going, all right, this place is going to continue to function as the centerpiece for Penacook. And seeing some of the comments on Facebook, I think there's a lot of appreciation for that effort as well, and it's just nice. It's nice to read. I don't always read all of them. I don't have that kind of time, but it was kind of cool because there's hundreds of them. I do want to thank a few people this morning, because without this wouldn't have happened. I do want to start with the Rowe family, Marshall and Rachel. I first met Rachel in Penacook with the Boys and Girls Club then. That was our first merger. I think it was a grand total of $25,000 was net revenue for that organization, and it was a teen center. And Rachel was on the board, and we've kind of known each other ever since. That was 20-something years ago, well over 20-something years ago. And we've kind of become fast friends, and they've become, you know, just enormous supporters of our effort. But I also feel like every time I talk to them, it's nice to have people that support, you know, me as a person, and I really feel that with many of our donors, which is strange, because you're like, no, it's supporting the organization. It's not me. But to hear them, you know, we've got our thick and thin, just like every other organization, and to have donors come to you when it is the thick part of your journey and saying, you know, we're with you, we support you, and you know, you and the organization mean a lot to us, means a lot to me. So Marshall and Rachel and your family, thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. It's kind of fitting that Byron is with us, because he was, when we did our campaign for Bradley Street, he was the first person. He was working for Lincoln Financial back then, and I don't think it was Lincoln, but Lincoln Financial. And I said, I haven't raised any money yet. We want to do a building. And he's like, okay, so you need someone to be first. And he's like, I understand, because people are going to follow the leader, right? And, you know, Lincoln Financial, he's like, I can't promise anything, but he's like, we will do something. And that just gave you that momentum that you need in every campaign to go, okay, someone's interested. The Rowe family was that catalyst for us, because really up until then it's just sketches and a vision. And they gave the signature gift, and you kind of walk away from that. And maybe I'm not a good fundraiser, but I didn't even ask. They said, this is what we want to do. And I was like, I get a little teary-eyed, and I was like, that's kind of what I was hoping you would say, but you just never know. That's when you know this is actually going to happen. And donors followed the leader, and we're here today. So those people are important because they give you that giant momentum. I certainly want to thank the city officials because we partnered, and the librarian was right on it, like literally the second day when we announced the merger, and said, hey, if you're going to build a new building, which we weren't thinking about doing yet, do you think we could have a library annex there? And immediately you're like, that actually makes perfect sense because it is the Penacook Community Center, and why not have something like that right attached to the building? So as Beth can attest to, it took a little finagling behind the scenes to make all of that happen, but it was all worth it in the end because we're going to have a permanent home for the Penacook Library, and I think that's really important. Matt's here too. He was there in the early stages. The city's always been easy to work with for us because we used to be part of the city as the Concord Police Boys Club. And I know some of them may not even remember that, but there's always been, I think, a spot in the city's heart for us. So when we work on projects like this, these public-private ventures, they have to follow their rules and their procedures, or we would expect them to, but they always make it easy in how they explain things to us and go, this is the reason why X, Y, and Z needs to happen. Former Mayor Belay's here, and he certainly helped us with all the conversations that need to kind of happen in the hallways. And let's give him a round of applause because he did a wonderful job. I do want to talk about the engineers, and I think it's important. I know sometimes people are like, engineers, architects, but they are important because the place isn't going to stand if you don't have good people designing things. And for those of you not familiar with this site, there is a water table issue here, to say the least, because when we took out buildings, those basements just filled right up like swimming pools. So we're like, okay, Erin and her team at Wilcox and Barton are going to have to pay attention to that and make sure that we don't have drainage issues on this site. So they did a wonderful job. Team engineer was one of the first teams on it. They had basically a partnership with Penacook Community Center that was already standing, and we invited them in. And when I say the manual of things that we needed to fix on the former buildings was about this thick, I'm like, yeah, it kind of tells you everything you need to know, that we should probably tear them down and start new. But they kind of stayed with us, and we hired them as the architects to design and build this facility. Terrain planning did the natural playground that you'll see on the side of the building. That was important to us to make sure that people can, when the kids are going out, it is interesting. You have to design something to kind of get back to nature, that what many of us used to do naturally and just play in the backyard and jump on trees. But it is important when you are a actual licensed child care to make sure that those trees and those facilities and the rocks are spaced properly. There's a lot of thought that kind of goes into it, and it has to look aesthetically pleasing. And luckily, we had some test subjects this morning. The Rowe family's grandkids are out there, and I was watching them very diligently to see what parts they went to, and it was exactly where we wanted them to go. So congratulations to them. And I do want to thank Cheryl Tufts. She no longer has a company, but she volunteered all of her time to put the designing together, because you do not want me choosing colors for the walls. They just won't be kid-friendly, let's put it that way. Picking out furniture, getting things kind of coordinated with our staff, it just sounds simple, but it is not, and trust me, so thank you, Cheryl. And she's done it for all of our buildings, so we don't have to have a committee that's deciding all of this stuff. Cheryl does it for us. And then, of course, milestone, someone needs to actually build the building that the architects are putting together, and they have built many of our public structures here in Concord and in Penacook, and their sign is basically everywhere. But anytime there's some kind of signature project going on, you tend to see them. And they're kind of that company that you just call first when you know you want something done right. And we met them when we first built Bradley Street. We kind of never looked back. They've done basically all of the construction projects. I tried to get them to go out to Berlin, but they're like, that's a little far. But they did hook us up with a very good company up there. So again, just a round of applause for all of them in helping us get this together. We're going to get on to some remarks from some of our community members, but before I do want to thank one person of our staff. The whole development team works hard at all of these efforts, but throughout this entire time, the whole time I've been here, except for maybe 1 year, is Emily O'Rourke. And she is that person behind the scenes that takes whatever garble I put together in words and puts it into English so that somebody reading it is like, yeah, this is actually a great idea. I think we want to fund that. And Emily has been that person this entire time. None of this, I don't think, would happen, actually, if she wasn't with me the whole time. In fact, one time she tried to leave, and we got her back because I'm like, we can only milk these grant applications that you put together for so long. I do want to recognize her. She's standing in the back, as she always does, but Emily O'Rourke, if you would just wave to everybody. Thank you. I know she hates that, so I just, but I definitely wanted to make sure that, I show my appreciation for everything she's done for more than 20 years now. So we have a few speakers just to kind of talk to you about the community support, the state support. And the first person is Chris Santinello. She works at DHHS. Throughout the pandemic, we got to know each other really well. And I do think it's important that she takes a few minutes and kind of talks about the child care and the licensed part of what we do and what the state really has done. Again, like Emily, behind the scenes. They're not in the papers talking about what they're doing. Sometimes they're just only in the papers when somebody doesn't like what they're doing, and that's not fair. I think it is important that everyone knows all that effort that goes on at the state offices behind those scenes. Chris, if you come up and say a couple things.
Thank you. Whoops. Can I go like this? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Chris. This morning is wonderful. In addition to seeing this wonderful space, I get to be bookmarked between two of my most favorite partners, Chris Eman and Katie Easterly Marte. Childcare and early learning has been a part of my career for as long as I can remember. First, as a parent needing quality childcare for my children, as an executive who needed quality childcare for my staff, the families we served, and actually Lakes Region Childcare, which is now part of Boys and Girls Club, was an integral partner through all of that. As a community partner, and now here at the department, supporting local efforts where everything happens. I know how important childcare and early learning is in our state. Chris, I just want to thank you for the work of your team and partners to make these renovations possible. I know it's not easy. I know there's a lot of red tape, but as Chris said, working together, we can do just about anything. I also want to thank the Boys and Girls Club for being such a good partner. Whenever I text Chris, usually it's on a weekend or late at night, it's never, we cannot do this. It is more, how do we work together to make this happen? And that's truly how things happen in New Hampshire. Again, I know the work of childcare and early learning is not easy. The department is committed to continuing to work together with our partners to strengthen childcare in New Hampshire. One of the positive things, a silver lining, is now people are talking about childcare. A few years ago, people weren't. We have many allies, many supporters, which is critical, as we can't solve this as one person, one group, entity. We have to work together. It requires partnerships and collaboration, something we do really well in New Hampshire. Childcare is complex. We need to work together to strengthen it in New Hampshire. The department has launched the state leadership team, which is made up of providers, advocates, and most importantly, parents, so that we can ensure that we are working together as we are all better together. Working together, we have provided over $160 million to stabilize and strengthen childcare in New Hampshire, with over $144 million going directly to childcare providers. We look forward to the days ahead, working together with all of our valued partners, including Boys and Girls Club and CDFA. So thank you, and thank you, Chris, for today.
Next up is Katie Easterly Marte, and she's the Executive Director of New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Those of you who are not familiar with that organization, they allow us to be able to sell tax credits to businesses. So businesses can make a contribution towards capital campaigns such as this, and then get a tax credit on goes against their BET taxes, and sometimes I think insurance costs. They also administer what are called community development block grants, and those come straight from the government. They are also for capital projects such as this. And I'll tell you, the combination of those two sources of funding, along with private donors, just makes an incredible mix. Because this building was $6 million, so that funds have to come from somewhere, and a large portion of that came from Katie's outfit. Not only here, but we have 4 of these going, not to this magnitude, but we have 4 CDBG funded projects going on all at the same time. 1 in Berlin, 2 in Laconia, and we're wrapping this one up here. So it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that comes our way to be able to renovate, upgrade buildings such as the one in Laconia, and then renovate rooms at White Mountain Community College so we can install childcare there as well, and basically a new lab school. So it's incredibly beneficial work for us, and sometimes, again, I think it goes kind of unnoticed. So I just ask that Katie comes up and says a few things.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's amazing because Chris is a partner that knows our program so well that he was able to explain them. So that takes a lot of my work away. But it really takes that partnership, right, of local community efforts that need an infusion, in our case, of both federal and state funds to make really these amazing projects happen. So I just want to mention a couple of the partnerships that really are critical to administering those funds. So that's our job, is we're the state administrator. So our work is to ensure that it is as seamless as possible to use federal and state funds for these incredible projects. But it takes, as Chris said and mentioned, so many partners to make that happen. First and foremost is our leadership at the Executive Council, and your counselor, Cindy Ormington's here, and has been an incredible supporter of the Community Development Block Grant Program. So thank you. And I think the city really has a vision for what they imagine this area to be. And we were really lucky to be advancing a project or investing in a project that they advanced, actually just down the street from this, which is a housing project. And as they talked about what they really care about in a community, creating a vibrant, well community where people have the services they need. Our small investments are a small piece of making those happen, but it was housing down the street and a municipally sponsored park, and now this incredible community center. But city leadership really having a vision for what their community will be and what its needs are in the future, and then working with us through the incredible complexity of the federal funds to make these things happen has been incredible. So to your counselor, current mayor, former mayor, and community development director, just another round of applause for the city. And then the tax credits. So it's just such an amazing thing to see the state of New Hampshire, not surprising because, as many people had noted, this is how things work in New Hampshire, is these partnerships. But there's so many companies represented here today, and they are the investors in this community project. So if you invested in this through your company, Amanda Grapponi, Frank from Milestone Construction, if you could just raise your hand and get a round of applause for your, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your commitment. And I think I think we all know the importance of this project. And I think one of the things that I was able to really think about yesterday as I was talking about coming here, one of my staff and one of our team members, Julius, is here and helps with that compliance work, ensuring that these projects can be successful and move through this. And when we were talking about it, another one of my staff members mentioned that she used to come to the Penacook Community Center to her 6th grade dances. And it was really held a special place in her heart, and she was so glad it was being rebuilt and was going to be here. And that was just incredible to hear, and those really strong community connections. And I was thinking for myself personally, I was going home to pick my kids up from the Boys and Girls Club in my community, which allows me to work and allows them to have a really healthy place to be every day in the summer and after school. So these critical community partners really allow all of us to have a place in our community where we can do good work and have communities that support that. So really glad to be part of this project. Thank Chris and your team for the incredible leadership and never saying no to these incredible opportunities. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I can think of a couple people on the staff that are like, it'd be nice if you would say no once in a while. Anyway, Mayor Byron, if you would come up and kind of close things for us. Just one thing of note, because I feel it's important. The sign person was working diligently through the night. The one thing we need to put up for some of the donors' sake are the real, actual donor signs. So when you're looking around, those will be new the next time you were here. But anyway, Mayor Byron, please.
One of the great things about being a cleanup speaker is that by the time you get up to speak, first of all, everyone has pretty much made all the points you were going to make, and second is everybody's ready for you to wrap up. So I'm going to try to be brief. I looked at this and I said, acknowledge Mayor Boulay and Chris for their leadership. Check. Acknowledge city staff. Check. Talk about community partnerships. Check. So what's there left for me to say? That to me, this project represents the best of Concord, the best of our community. It's a group of people seeing a need, finding a solution, working together to make the improbable possible. A community, a neighborhood, Penacook, which lost its community center, now has it back. And this continues the city of Concord's focus on improving the lives of our citizens in this village. From the renovation and reimagination of Boudreaux Square, to the Ketch neighborhood housing, affordable housing, to the mitigation of the former Allied Tannery site and the development of housing there, which we just cut the ribbon for, it seems like, yesterday at Caleb Developments, to this project, and soon we'll be opening, a soft opening of Riverside Park. This is the way we invest in a community. This is the way we encourage people to live in a quality, vibrant place. And none of this would happen without all the people that you see in this room. So I want to say, instead of identifying individuals, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who had a part of making this vision come true. Penacook now has another community center, has childcare, has a public meeting space, has a library space. And now I look forward to the vision that reuses the old police station and former library to see what the next generation and the next iteration of that important piece of property is. So thank you to everyone, and I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That concludes kind of the official remarks. Please walk around. The staff are here. Penacook staff, if you'd raise your hands, they will be more than happy to explain what's going on and take tours, but you can do the self-guided thing as well. The building isn't that big. You're not going to get lost. But thank you very much, and have a great day.
Hard.